Hi, Lisa Schermerhorn here, and welcome to my show, Lisa's Mindset. And I am really thrilled and excited to bring you a dear friend of mine, Nancy Strisik. And the two of us have been on adventures kind of around the world, so we can talk a little bit about this. We've been to Egypt together. We've been doing mystery school in Italy together. We've been all over France together. Um, Studying all kinds of metaphysical and fascinating things. And she is a homeopath. And I have to tell you, before she got certified, we were in Egypt together and we were on a boat on the Nile. And everyone, what were there, about 23 people on our boat? And one by one, every single one of those people got sick and missed at least 24 hours of our trip, like down. And this woman saved my vacation. We were the only two people who didn't get sick. She was like, here, take this, here, take that. It was pretty remarkable. And I was blown away. And I am so thrilled that she went on to pursue this because I'd like people to learn more about homeopathy and how it can help you and her own journey on getting on this path. So welcome, Nancy.
Thank you, Lisa.
So Nancy, we met, I want to say it's about 7 or 8 years ago now.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a funny story. I was at an event in Boston and I had an experience meeting this woman, Sandy, and I was at one of her workshops and I mentioned an ancient Egyptian goddess in the workshop and she pulled me aside and she said to me, we need to talk. And I said, why? She said, I'm taking a group to a mystery school in Italy called Damen here in 2 weeks. And I just had someone drop out and I'd like to see if you would like to join us. And I was like, Sandy, I can't drop everything and go to Italy in 2 weeks. And I'm going through a divorce. I don't have any money. And she said, well, just let me know. So I said a prayer and I asked if I'm meant to be, let the money appear. I got home and in my mailbox was a check for the amount of the trip from someone who owed me money who I'd written off. And I called her and I said, I'm coming. And guess who was my roommate? This amazing woman who you're about to learn from. And we've been on several adventures since then. So Nancy, I want you to talk about your journey as a child and really how, you had a bit of an unconventional upbringing, wouldn't you say?
Yes. Somebody just put really good words to it. They said, you're amazing for having such a rock tumbler life. So basically, and this same person that Lisa was talking about, Sandy, is also a holistic therapist. And so when I went to Sandy, she talked to me. She looked at my chart. She had me do a social atom, and she said, I've never seen anything like this.
Wait,
She goes,
what's a social atom?
it was a layout of your family, like a family tree, basically.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I put so all of my aunts and uncles died between the time I was 9 and 12. My father died when I was 9. And Sandy just said, she goes, I don't know what to say. And if you know Sandy, that would
Yeah.
be. So I just said, yeah. And so because my father died and my mother was basically a single mom, which wasn't a term at that point, she had to raise my sister and I, and it was a little bit too much for her. So she sent us to boarding school. So I went to boarding school from like age 10 through junior college. And so that made me be pretty self-sufficient in a lot of ways. There were some good things, there were some not so pleasant things there, but all in all, I did get a good education and I learned how to study. So from there, and then when I was 17, well, actually, when I was 14, I went to summer school in Spain with the headmaster from boarding school because we were very close. And I convinced my mother that it was much better to go to summer school in Spain than it was to go to summer camp. And she couldn't, and I told her, I said, it's only $200 more. So she goes, yeah, you have a point. So my sister, who's 3 years older, had to come with me, but we went to Spain for summer school for like 6 weeks, and I fell in love with Spain. And then a couple of years later, when I was 17, my mother decided she was going to move to Spain, sell the business, retire, do whatever. Some people moved to Florida. My mother moved to Spain. So, which was kind of cool because, I mean, even though it was difficult to have her be in Spain because there weren't cell phones then, and there wasn't, long distance calling was very expensive. And so, but it was also really nice because how many kids get to say, I get to go to Spain? Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do this summer. I have to go to Spain. That was kind of fun. And I got to go horseback riding with gypsies and um so and I just fell in love with Spain and speaking Spanish. And um so that's basically what happened. And then um a couple of years later, I had a friend that I had been in the travel business with, and I went to visit her in North Carolina. And I was staying with her, and she had a student from Germany studying homeopathy. And this had to be probably 30, 35 years ago. And so she was talking about homeopathy, and I told her I was allergic to bees. And so she said, well, rather than carry an EpiPen, you can carry these little remedies. And she gave me 3 different potencies, strengths. And she said, you should, if you get stung by a bee, take the lowest one, then take the next one, then take the next one. And so I said, okay, thanks. And I thought it was all very interesting. And she said, homeopathy it's a very gentle therapeutic approach to health. And I said, okay. So I went to bed that night, and I woke up at like 1 or 2 in the morning with an asthma attack. And I'm in North Carolina, and I'm like going, well, like, I don't think it's really cool to like wake my friends up and say, can you take me to the hospital? So I said, let's see if these little pellets work. So mind you that these little pellets are like the size of a poppy seed. And so I'm going, okay, well, let's just see what happens. So I took it as she told me. I took the first one. I waited a minute, took the second one, waited another few minutes, took the third one. 20 minutes later, I was like sound asleep. Boom, gone.
So it was the same remedy that you could use for an asthma attack as you could for a bee sting?
Apparently.
Because my limited knowledge of homeopathy is it's very specific to certain issues. Even you can have a cold, but there could be 10 different remedies for a cold depending upon if you have a runny nose or sinus headache.
That is true. But the asthma if you had asthma,
Right, which I
it may
do.
not work for if you had a cat allergy too.
Right.
It may or may not work, but I just figured I didn't have anything to lose.
That's amazing.
So I fell asleep for like a few hours. I woke up and I was still a little wheezy. So she had said, if anything happens, just take the highest potency
Mhm.
again. So I did. Boom, right back to sleep. And I woke up at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and I went downstairs and I told my friends what happened. And they said, oh, yeah, we didn't know that the cat was sleeping in making the guest bedroom at the bed its little home. So all the cat dander had been on the bed, and I'm allergic to cats.
Wow.
So that was kind of intriguing, to say the least.
Wow. That's so interesting.
Yeah. So, and then um a few years later, I don't know, I was in a depression, and I had been working in real estate management, which I didn't really want to do anymore. And um I j- I was really depressed, and I really, to say that mental health is, there's so much stigma around it. I mean, that's just a total understatement. And um, I didn't really think I was depressed because I still had a good attitude about life. So just because you're depressed doesn't mean you're going to be laying around sad crying all the
Yeah.
time. There's all different forms of it. And so I went to get on Zoloft. It was suggested I get on some medication, and I've never been pro medication, but I decided to try Zola. But after 6 months, I said, no, I don't like the way this makes me feel. So one of my friends suggested I go to a homeopath. So I said, okay, yeah, I kind of remember something about that. And so I went I went to see a homeopath, and she put me on nat well, the nickname is Natmur, Natrum muriaticum,
Yeah.
and it's so much fun to learn Latin. Uh, so I I was on that for a year and a half, and it really helped a lot. And I mean, when I was depressed, I was afraid of a fax machine, and that
Wow.
was pretty awful. And I wasn't really able to work. And so I was able to get back to work. And oddly enough, I ended up working in pharma.
But here's the interesting thing about homeopathy is that people don't really know is in the turn of the century, like in the early 1900s, I know most of Europe uses, like most of the doctors there have studied homeopathy. They use it quite frequently. And that most of the doctors were homeopaths early on until what we call traditional medicine that we know of now, Western medicine, came in with the pharmaceutical. Is that true?
That is true. And in fact, Boston University medical school used to be used to be a university for homeopathy, as well as the University of Pennsylvania, or one of the big colleges.
Um,
Yeah, and in fact, the Boston, University, the homeopathy school, was founded by two women,
wow.
which, but um, I mean, it's a very hard line to walk or understand, but um, homeopathy, you really work closely with the patient, and that is really pretty amazing. It can take a couple of hours for an intake, but you talk about everything in your whole life. And allopathy, even today, still doesn't believe that the body and the mind are connected. You know, it's back.
I don't understand that, to be honest. As a hypnotherapist myself, I see it every day with people. To not make the connection of the body and the mind is absurd.
Yeah, well, apparently there was this guy, Galen, from the 1700s, and that's like as far as we've progressed. So, I understand. I mean, it takes a long time to find a remedy, but the thing is that homeopathy can cure. I mean, and we talk about predisposition in allopathic medicine, or the medical system we have now.
Mhm.
And it's they you inherit things from your parents. And it's like if you started A and you keep adding, this thing and this thing and this thing, yeah, you're only going to get sicker. It's not really rocket science. But people don't, for some reason, it takes a long time to change people's opinion. So
So that's really interesting. I never thought about homeopathy treating inherited because I work as a homeopath. Matter of fact, I worked with someone yesterday going back 10 generations, clearing out inherited ancestral dysfunction. But you can do that through homeopathy as well. How does that work?
well, if you have, say, I mean, as an adult, it's much hard. I don't think it can be done, but if you have a child,
Mhm.
and like when you're born, we call it, maybe you raise your right hand like your mother does. You do certain behaviors or mannerisms, and you have illnesses that come from your parents and everything. I mean, being in the womb, they share a lot. Moms share a lot with their kids.
They do.
So if you get a kid who's born and you can, if you put them on homeopathy, you can actually change the predisposition, because if you can cure the predisposition, then it's not going to get passed forward.
Wow. So what are examples of things that you might work with with a young child?
Ever have a misbehaving child?
Oh, so you can work with behavior as well. It's not just physical. So you
No,
can work with emotional and things like that.
yeah, because the behavior comes from the emotional,
Mm.
you know? So you can basically, I mean, tonsillitis, urinary tract infections, basically anything, ADHD. Um, I mean, why there's a reason why people act the way they do. And in the bigger picture, like syphilis and gonorrhea are really big in homeopathy, and it gets passed down from generation to generation.
So, oh wow. So if your great grandparent had syphilis or gonorrhea, that can actually come down and it's inherited. So how does that manifest?
It can manifest in behaviors, it can manifest in emotional problems, but like they were treating people with mercury to get rid of syphilis. So now, I mean, is it a big jump to consider, mercury in fillings and how that's related and the toxicity um, and again, it's a predisposition that was passed on. I was talking to my dentist the other day about this, and he loves homeopathy, and um, he told me his father used to put mercury, like real live mercury, on the floor and tell him to chase it.
You know, it's interesting. I remember when I lived in Pittsburgh, I'd started to see a homeopath, and my dentist said to me, you need to replace all your fillings. They were mercury fillings, and they wanted to use a composite. And when I spoke to my homeopath, she gave me, I don't even remember the remedy to take so that I wouldn't take on the mercury as it was being drilled out of my mouth. And I've never forgotten that. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, well, I just finished taking this course on heavy metal burdens in the body. And
Wow.
if you really want to get scared, I mean, mercury was like the first one that we studied. And the thing is that so many side effects from these things are just things typical, like sneezing and coughing and sore throats, or you may get a lot of colds. Like you won't get, doctors just say, oh, it's nothing, but
Wow.
it has a great potential for misdiagnosis, the heavy metals in your body. And um, you can detox with homeopathy. You can also use gemotherapy, which I'm studying now, and which
And
is
what is that?
Gemotherapy. It's herbal remedies that are made from, when the buds, like it's actually gemotherapy season very soon because the remedies are taken from the buds in the trees. And they're made into tinctures and you can take them. And there's different ones that correspond with different parts of the body and helps you detox.
So
And
that's not, is that like a Bach flower remedy almost? Like,
no,
no, it's
different than
different.
Bach.
Okay,
They're stronger.
okay,
And they're much more related to the organs, where Bach is more emotional based.
okay.
But I'm all for whatever works.
I agree. I agree. So that's fascinating. So this is why the intake takes so long for you to find out. How do you determine if this is inherited versus, something, I mean, a cold, for most people, you go in and they say, here, take your cough medicine and a decongestant and go home. With a homeopath, you're going to get a lot more time and questions.
Yes, and sometimes it can be upsetting because people just aren't used to being asked such personal questions. And
Mhm.
so, but that's why the relationship is so important. But most people find that just talking about their life and what has happened is actually therapeutic in itself
Sure.
because we're active listeners and um, we have to find the patterns. And medicine doesn't look like, if say like you have it, like in my life I had a lot of griefs and I haven't had a lot of physical illnesses, and but yet traditional medicine doesn't look that all the things that happen after that are related, they're connected.
Mm.
And so that you have to see the picture. And but I think what I like about homeopathy is I love that it's very empowering to you. I think I understand that in the beginning, education and doctors, I mean, they were taught that they had to be responsible for everything. And we have made them into gods. And I'm not so sure they want to be that either, although
Yeah.
they've adapted nicely. Um, but, you know, we expect them to know the answers when in fact, we know our body better than anybody else. And so many times you go to the doctor and you say, well, I scratch my left leg on every Tuesday night at like 7 o'clock. And the doctor says, yeah, thanks for sharing. And let's move on. You know, but in homeopathy, there's those little things that you do that really help you find the right remedy because everything that is a shock to your system can manifest into an illness, whether it's mental, physical, or emotion. And some our body can, it's fine. But the whole point, which is why I named my business this, the name of my website is yourvitalforce.live. And I named it because in homeopathy, disease is not a physical phenomenon. It's a disturbance of the vital force. So when something happens to you, all those symptoms, it's just that your vital force has been weakened. And so homeopathy tries to find the best remedy to give that matches the symptoms that you have so that your vital force can be restored and the body can heal itself.
So
And
interesting. So what does an intake look like with you? What are the types of questions that you tend to ask people and how long does that take?
it can take um, 1.5 to 2 hours, and it covers. And that's after I send you a form that will take you a couple hours to fill out. But but it's basically it's a timeline of what has happened in your life. And
Mm,
and so because like I said earlier, it adds on. So you can see where the disturbance started because we don't always remember or we don't always make the connection. And
right.
sometimes the connection we make is wrong. But stuff happens. And so I'll ask questions like how you experience something, what the family, your childhood was like, what is your relationship now? Um, I'll ask weird questions like, do you have any food cravings? Do you have um, any just anything that you find really weird about your life, or you've just always been curious about? Um, so it, and I will ask about your sex life and, you know,
Or the
and
non-existent one.
yes, whatever, relationships and yeah, because I know I sent somebody to a homeopath and she called me up and she goes, I think he was hitting on me. And I said, well, I don't want to say that he isn't. I said, but I just think that you need to know that the homeopathic interview is not the same as when you go to the doctor and you just tell them a complaint. So I said, he may have been asking you questions to get the whole picture. So, yeah, because I people think that you can just say to me, well, I have a cold. Can I have a remedy? And like you said, there's like 10 or 15 remedies for colds. And it's because your cold is going to be really different. So you have
Right.
to really screen out what the differences are. Like I only drink ice cold water, and other people can only drink room temperature,
Yeah.
but that will help me find a remedy. So, because we're all different, and that's what's really cool about homeopathy. It's really individualized, and I think um, it gives power back to the people, and people should be responsible for their health. I mean, many of us had grandmothers who would say, put honey in your tea or take this or take this herb, or they'll make you some weird concoction. People have strange concoctions for, hangovers and, all that folk medicine has a large part of it has been lost.
Yeah. Well, my great grandmother used to have a shot of brandy before she went to bed. Maybe I need to start doing that.
Yeah. No, I mean, we both grew up Jewish. I mean, we take chicken soup for everything.
Exactly. Jewish penicillin. So, yeah, and by the way, she makes the most amazing Indian food. Better than some people who are native of the country. She came to my home and cooked for us, and I want her to move in.
Thank you. That was fun. I do like to cook Indian, and since COVID, I have been able to go back to the ashram and be able to cook again. So that it was like, and I didn't forget.
Yeah, no, she's an amazing, talented Indian chef cook. Um, so I'm curious, what are some of the things that people might really find um homeopathy really help, and how long does it take for an issue? But I actually, what keeps coming up in my mind, and I don't know why, is autism. Has homeopathy had any success with helping children with autism?
Yes, it definitely can help, and
Mm,
it really depends if you're born with it or if you have onset
mm,
autism. And we did have a couple of cases in clinic, and I mean, we did see a difference. I mean, I don't know if it can be totally reversed, but
mhm.
you know, I It's just amazing. And there's people that really specialize in that, in autism and homeopathy. So, it's pretty amazing. And like things like ADHD can be
Mhm.
helped, and even like teething. And like a lot of kids when they cry, like you say, parents go, "He'll only stop crying if I put him in the car and drive around for a few hours."
I
Well,
had one of those.
they needed the remedy
Chamomile?
chamomile.
Wow.
So, it's just fascinating, and there's, like, endless I barely touched the surface on going back to school,
Mm.
and, I can actually thank Lisa and Sandy and Heidi for pushing me to go to study homeopathy. I really didn't have the intention of practicing, but because the chronic diseases really take a lot of work, and,
Mhm.
um I didn't know if I had the time or the energy to do that. So, but I decided, well, I could just take it because I want to
Right.
and worry about the other stuff later. And it really wasn't until maybe like the last year of school that I said, no, I think I do have to practice. And
Yeah.
because people really are suffering sometimes needlessly. And, you know, how long does it take? Well, um, like, like when you go to the doctor, sometimes you don't get the remedy right the first time.
Mm.
So that aside, it really depends on how long you've had the issue. And when you find the right remedy, um, sometimes it depends on what you have. I don't know. I still think about this case we had in school, and it was this 7-year-old girl who started developing. She started getting her period, she started getting breath,
Wow.
and I'm like, going, 7? That would be kind of unsettling for her and
Yeah.
parents. And so she went to my teacher, and her father was a dentist and somehow knew about my teacher, and he treated her from 7 years old to till she was 15. So he had to take her out of developing and then make her body go back to where it would develop at the right time. Over 8 years, and he only gave her 3 remedies.
Mm.
I mean, that's remarkable.
So did they ever figure out why she was developing the way she was?
No, probably
Wow.
imbalance of growth hormones.
Yeah. That's so fascinating. I remember when my son was born, he had a lot of allergies. And he had eczema and upper respiratory and ear infections and with spike fevers from 103 to 105. And I remember as a new mother, I had no idea what was going on, and I'd rush him to the emergency room, of course, New Year's Eve, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. And finally, the next day, I got him to his pediatrician, and he had developed asthma. So they were pumping him full of antibiotics and steroids and had him on a nebulizer. And I was like, I don't want him on this for, so for a prolonged period of time. And they took his adenoids out. They were doing all these things. And finally I found, there was a homeopathic doctor that moved to my town in New Jersey, Dr. Shuknik. And he was a very famous homeopath. He was well known in Boston. I think he ran a school out of Boston. And someone suggested him. And I remember these little tiny white pellets. And there were all these instructions. And this was something that we did something called succussions, where you would bang it and, go through. And then he would go through these healing crises where he was actually bringing it up. It was making it worse before it would get better. And I found the whole science and art of it fascinating.
Yeah, he's actually one of my favorite teachers too. I've been reading his books, and yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Do you know how they figured out about succussion and putting it in water?
No.
So Hahnemann, who's the founder of homeopathy, they had house calls back then. And so he would have his remedies in the back of his little cart, and the cobblestones would make it bounce. And so he figured out that as the bouncing happened, the remedies got stronger.
Yes, that's so fascinating. So I'd love for you to give the audience a little background about Hahnemann and how he came up with this, because it's almost like you're actually giving someone a molecule or so of the actual thing you're matching, correct? Like the only one that has never worked for me is rust toxin for poison ivy. I've never had that work.
Yeah, well, I have a friend, she says bryonia for everything, and it does nothing for me.
Yeah.
And so bryonia is like if you have a cold and if you can't move, it will work. But if I get a cold, I'm still running around. So probably why it doesn't work for me. But so Hahnemann actually was an MD, and he wasn't, let's just say he was an anarchist. He just didn't like what he was seeing. And
Mhm.
so, and he was not accepted. But he actually started researching. He was translating medical books to make money, and he
Hmm.
spoke 7 languages. So he he started researching all this stuff, and apparently homeopathy comes from, if you go all the ways back, it actually goes back to Isis in Egypt. She gave the first
Wow.
homeopathic remedy.
Wow, I just got the
Yeah.
chills.
So, but Paracelsus, it all came from the Greeks, and so, and it's just fascinating. So he actually got thrown out of the medical profession. He studied in Leipzig, Germany, and an interesting thing is there's a Egyptian papyrus that was discovered. There's only 2 papyruses that have been fully discovered, and there's one called the Ebers paper, and it's a complete medical text. And it was found in Germany, and I forget by this guy Ebers, and he brought it back to Germany, and it's actually at the University of Germany, where the medical school where Hahnemann went, and it's like brand new, and it's all the what they were doing, and if we didn't believe in predisposition, like I've read parts of it, and they talked about the herbs and they were doing surgery, and I haven't read the part about making that, but
Making what
mummies.
oh, the mummification. Well, maybe you actually wrote it as a scribe when you were in Egypt in that past life of yours.
Could be. And I wish, if I did it, please give it back to me. But it's fascinating to me to think about predisposition, because a lot of the same diseases were there. They had arthritis.
Hmm.
I read it, and they there's parts that talk about the herbal remedies and things like that. And so I'm trying to read through it. It's, you know, to see, if they did anything like homeopathy back then,
Mhm.
because I've been guided many times to find this text. And I'm not, I don't read hieroglyphics.
No?
No, not now. But it's all just so fascinating. And Hahnemann, um, he actually met Melanie Hahnemann, somebody who was like 30 years younger than he was, and he got married, and she was very bougie, as they say, and they went and lived in France. and where he could actually practice medicine again. And he was doing homeopathy. And she was actually one of his best students. And when he died at 88, and France gave her a hard time because she wasn't a doctor. And but she was one of his best students. But the gift that Hahnemann has given us is this book called The Organon. And that's like he tells you exactly how to be a homeopath, exactly how to make remedies, what worked and what didn't. And he, there's when you find a homeopath, you'll find that that everybody says they're a classical homeopath. And what that really means, one remedy at a time. Everybody should be doing that. But a lot of people like to mix remedies, and it's not always the main thing is that if you take a lot of remedies at once, you can't tell which one's working.
Right, and I've seen, like, what's the company, Boron, how do you pronounce that?
Yeah, Boiron, yeah.
Boron, they do a lot of, combining things, like here's a sinus remedy, or here's one, and then they put every single sinus remedy in there. So hoping one of them will work, correct?
Yes, and what the funny part is, and they should know this, but I mean, I mean, you have to be fair about things. I mean, homeopathy, everybody likes to make money.
Mhm.
And if somebody gets help with sinus remedy, but you know, even the combination may not work because maybe the person has sinus infection because they had a breakup with a boyfriend. And then the remedy isn't going to have anything to do with the sinus remedy. You're going to need a grief or disappointment in love remedy.
Right, so that's where the body mind comes in, and I will tell you, I'm as a big proponent of that, for people to truly understand the detective work that goes into this, of really figuring out what remedy is going to help based on emotional, because as humans, I find that a lot of people, especially men, don't process their emotions, right? They stuff them down and they don't deal with them. Well, they have to come out somewhere. So if you're not allowing them to flow through you and process them, then they get stuck in the body at a cellular level, and then they start to turn into these things that start to happen in our body. And I remember I was just talking about this yesterday. I had one of my best friends from high school had died, and they asked me to do her eulogy, and when I got down there, I found out some things about her that I didn't know, and I had this tremendous amount of guilt that I had not been able to help her because there were things going on in her life she was hiding. And on the way home, my right eye was bright red, like bright red. And the gentleman next to me was like, "Are you okay? Why? What's going on with your eye?" And I looked in the mirror, I was like, "Holy smokes," it looked like was bleeding. And I looked up in my book, I have this book, Your Body Speaks Your Mind by Deb Shapiro. And it said, "What is it you don't want to see? What is it you don't want to know?" And so I had to clear the emotions of that and the guilt that I had. And then it cleared up in 2 days. But it's
Yeah.
by getting to the root cause, and I'm getting from you that homeopathy really does get to the root cause. And now you have also different levels, like there's a 30C, there's 200C, there's all these different. Can you talk to that and what makes one work better than another?
Well, it really depends on this, the health, the health of your vital force, because not only do you have to match the remedy, like what Lisa mentioned is that it's the potency of the remedies. And what's really interesting that alluded to this before is that there actually is not a molecule of anything in homeopathy. It's totally energetic. And by the time you get a remedy, there's actually, like if you take sulfur, the element sulfur, the mineral, by the time you get the remedy, there's actually no material basis of sulfur in the remedy. So I know there's LMs, which is actually, I mean, I was taught, which is much easier to remember, liquid method, but it actually means 950 because it's Roman numerals. So
Right.
it's 50 and M is 1,000. L is 50. So it's 950,000. I mean, and the LMs, everybody thinks are weaker, but they're actually, because they're actually stronger. But so it goes from 6C all the ways up to 100 CM, which is 100,000. And
Right.
you can make it stronger, but nobody even uses the CMs. It's very rare.
Right. I've used homeopathy for years. I've never had a homeopath prescribe one for me at that level. But I remember Dr. Shuknik was just everyone gets 200C. And he sold kits. He had these handmade kits. They were actually in these little green boxes that had they were actually gun shell cases.
Yeah, I just learned that
The
that's,
ammunition shell cases, I still have it. It's like a lifetime supply. I will never use all of the pellets that are in this little case. And you open it up and they were all labeled, but he was a firm believer that 200 C, which was the potency, was for everything.
well, that tends, especially for acutes. And acute is like you get the flu, you get food poisoning,
Right.
and that's great. And but I tend to, I'm a sensitive, so I react easily to everything.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, you have to get like what they call an aggravation. You get better, you get
Right.
worse before you get better.
Right.
So I use LMs because they work better for me.
Yeah.
And the cool part about that is that you can dilute it or make it stronger by putting it in water and by how how you do the succussions. And I mean,
So
that's just,
if you want to clarify what a succussion is, because I mentioned it before, but we didn't even talk about like
it's just what another word for it is thwacking. Succussion is just taking
just bang.
the bottle and banging it on your hand, and you don't have to do it very hard. I mean, it's just to have a solid thing, like a telephone book or a book. And it makes the remedy stronger because for some reason the body doesn't like to take the same remedy twice.
Mm.
So even just a little difference, the body knows.
So someone used an example for me about something like that with another product that imagine you're sitting there and something's tapping at you. There's a frequency. At some point, if that goes on long enough, you just stop feeling it, right? Your body just ignores it. It's not even
Yeah.
impacting you. But if you stop or you change it and then the frequency shifts, you're going to feel it. So I imagine it's that similar kind of philosophy.
Yes, exactly. So, but something else that's very important, and um, there's always a lot of discussion and dissension about, is homeopathy real? Is it a science? Is it medicine? And um, so, but what people don't realize from taking all the medicine, the drugs and stuff, you are suppressing all the stuff inside you. And you, I mean, they even know now, they talk about antibiotic resistance. And so when you go to a homeopath, you're going to have to um, go through some of those layers. And it's the more medication you're on, and the harder it is to navigate the case,
Mm.
because it's taken years for you to get this sick. So it's going to take you some time to get better.
So
And
is the process also detoxing them from their medication as well as
yeah,
dealing with, so you've got twofold on you then.
yeah. And
Double
so,
duty.
but I mean, it can be so helpful.
Well, I remember years ago, I want to say 15 years ago, I was with a friend of mine and she was really upset because she got a call, her mother who lived an hour away. had gotten up in the middle of the night. She was naked with a robe on, trying to get in her car to drive someplace, and she had no idea where she was. When my friend did the research, they realized that they had her on so many medications being prescribed by so many different doctors that she was losing her memory and she had no idea where she was. She was having these episodes. So they took her off all of her medication and her memory came back and everything started to come back. So it's just this lack of communication between a lot of doctors and people getting over prescribed for things as well. Sometimes we have to take a step back. And again, I have to say a disclaimer, we're not here to diagnose or treat, anything. We are not medical professionals. I'm not a licensed medical profession. I don't know what the homeopathic certification that you have. But I remember like my cousin who went to school as a pediatrician, and I had started with my son on homeopathy, and I remember him getting angry at me. And he's like, where are the studies? Where's the proof? I want to know. And this was like 30 years ago. And I just said it's working. And he's like, this is irresponsible of you. Well, 15 years later, he's a pediatric homeopath.
I love it. But there is plenty of research, and there's more and more research being done all the time.
Right,
The problem with homeopathy and research is that because it's so individualized, we
right,
can't put 15 people on a certain remedy because
right,
it's not meant for them. So, but there's plenty of researches and plenty of cases, and I mean, homeopathy can cover so much. And I'm not a licensed medical professional either, but um, I believe in it strongly, and I believe in people being responsible for their health. And we all need help sometimes to do that, but there isn't anybody who doesn't know their body better than you.
right. Right. That's a really good point about the lack of ability to do certain studies because you're right. And even with everything, everyone reacts differently. It's not just homeopathy. But I say, I don't take lightly, you are not a licensed mental or medical professional, but you've gone through 3 intense years of study. This is no like taking a course over a couple of weekends. This is someone who's really done, quite a bit of work. Homeopathy is a true science as well as an art.
Yes, thank you. And yeah, I mean, and it's totally fascinating. And I'll never stop learning because there's just so much to know. And there's so many different possibilities. And now there, homeopathy really is quantum physics, and they're just
Mm,
beginning to come up with that and see the correlation, like, oh, maybe this is connected,
mm,
you know.
yeah.
But it's it's truly it's truly fascinating.
So have you, what was I just absolutely just went right out of my head. I had a question and then it left. Oh, can you do this online, like on Zoom, or do you have to work with someone in person?
No, actually, I'm doing it all on Zoom.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So then you can work with people all over the world. So you'll do and they'll fill out the forms and then you do your intake online and then you can, so how do you get the remedies to people? Because are these, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Um, I usually give people a little write-up. You can order them from Amazon, you can order them from a pharmacy, and
Okay.
and if I have them, because basically I now have a treasure trove of remedies, because there's like 2,000 remedies at least.
Mm,
And so I don't know about all of them, but I can research things. And um, so if I have it, I can mail it, but usually I just have people order it.
okay. So that's so interesting. So what does it look like for someone to contact you and go through the process of having a session with you?
There's a form on my website, www.yourvitalforce.live.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a form that says contact, and it asks a few basic questions. And and we go from there. I'm seeing people on Saturdays to
Mm-hmm.
start out, and or by appointment. And um and then they just fill out the form and I send them more forms.
So how long would someone necessarily work with you, or it really varies by what issue they have? They might have several sessions or one
Yeah,
session.
it depends. Like I do a focus session where it's just like one thing. It could be insomnia, and in the interview, and it really depends on how long they've had it and how many medications they're on, and
Yeah.
how willing, because people do um sometimes forget to take the remedy, or they take it, you know, do strange things, but it's all part of the process. And I know there's always been talk about one of the reasons why I also like the LMs is because people are kind of addicted to coffee, and coffee does antidote homeopathic remedies as
That
well.
was the other question I was gonna ask you. So coffee, my understanding, coffee and mint. And mint is in toothpaste, right?
Mint's not so much. Mint is only if you're really taking Natmir.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. And then they said chocolate too.
I
Can
haven't
do
heard
that.
chocolate.
Yeah, someone had said chocolate, but maybe it was the caffeine in it.
Yeah, and but on LMs, you're taking it every day, a little
Mm,
every day, and that's also good for people too, because people are used to taking medicine every day. But
right.
people, what's cool about homeopathy, and it's really hard for people to like grasp it, but less is more. And if
Yes,
you take more, you're going to get an aggravation, and it's not going to be pleasant. And the only thing you can do is wait. But
right.
I also found out one of my student cases, she would do well, and then all of a sudden it would come back. And so because I knew her, I knew she went swimming. And I knew she was also into essential oils, and I knew she made her own lotions and stuff. And it dawned on me, essential oils can antidote too. And and so she said, yeah, I go swimming. And because I was thinking, well, maybe it's the chlorine that could happen too. So well, I said, are you using any essential oils or lotions after you go swimming and stuff? She goes, yeah, I rub it all over my body. And she goes, and it doesn't smell. And I said, well, I don't think that's the point here. I said, you've put it all over your body and it's gone into your
Right.
body. And I think it's antidoted the remedy. So I said, what,
Yeah, is it eucalyptus is one
all
of
of
them?
them, all of them.
Oh,
In fact, when I was in Egypt, we went to see an, uh, an essential oil guy, and
yeah.
the Reiki master, a different one than the one you and I went to. And so I asked him point blank, I said, I just finished homeopathy school. I've been told that essential oils can antidote homeopathic remedies. And he said, yes, that's true. And so, and I found it in my experience. And so she stopped doing the essential oils and the
Oh.
remedy started to work again.
See, that's really great information to know because I didn't, everyone has their own, but I remember saying no mint, or you wanted to wait after you brushed your teeth, like 15 minutes. And you wanted to have a clean mouth and put the pellets. Here's something that was really interesting too. This happened to me 25 years ago. My son and my daughter were maybe even longer than that. They were, first, second grade-ish, and one of their friends, my daughter's friend's father, was a doctor. And the mother, every time they dropped us off, would say, I've never had this happen before. Do you have medications in your house? Are they accessible to children? Is there possible possibility of overdosing in your house, and they made me so paranoid, and I'm like, oh my God, no, I don't really have much in the way of medications that. So anyway, my daughter and her friend were playing, and what was out? A bottle of a homeopathic remedy. And this little boy opened up and ate the entire bottle of their sugar pills, basically, with the homeopathic remedy.
Right.
And I freaked out. I was like, of all people, this is the doctor who had me, like, literally put me through a battery of questions. And I immediately called the homeopathy, and they're like, they'll be fine. Nothing,
Yeah.
and nothing happened.
Yes, apparently, if the remedy is not for you,
Right,
you could take a gazillion tablets and nothing will happen.
right. And that's the other thing. So you can't really do harm. Like if you take the wrong remedy, nothing's going to happen to you. You'll be okay.
Yeah, and it's not suppressing anything like
Right.
yeah, because in school, people would come and they'd say, I've tried this remedy, I've tried this remedy, that remedy, that remedy. And my teacher would just sit there and, "Mhm." And then, and, and sometimes it's just, and then he'd say, well, we'll try this remedy. And it could be, you just need a lower potency. But it doesn't matter because, he just finds the right remedy.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
It's pretty amazing how this works. I mean, not only do you have to go through and figure out which remedy, then you have to figure out which potency. So there's a lot to this. And I have to tell you, I'm so proud of you because this woman could do this without even having gone to school. She knew this. It was so intuitive for her anyway that I'm thrilled that you've gone on to really study it at a deeper level because I know that whatever you do, you become a master in. And this woman literally, because she saved that trip, everyone else on the boat was going down. It's like, here, take this quick before you go to bed. It was
yeah,
amazing.
thank you. No, it is an amazing, I feel really blessed to have found it. And, I've been in many, many careers and switched many times. And, it's taken a while to get here, but I'm assuming I'm here at the right time.
Yes. And so we have your vitalforce.live. And is that how people can get in touch with you, or if they have any questions, do they go through your website, or is there an email or any other information?
My email is yourvitalforce8@gmail.
Your Vital Force 8, as in the number 8?
Yes,
Okay.
for infinity.
Ah, very good.
And I have to turn on the light to, and I do have a phone numbers, 857 540
Yeah.
6819.
Okay, so I'm gonna put all this in the description so people will have that. So if they want to get in touch with you and find out more about how you can, if you've been especially dealing with something for a long time and you've gone from, doctor to doctor trying to figure this out, or don't wait. If you've got something coming on and you want to remedy this without having to get on medication, there's so many things. This is physical, emotional, mental, and I imagine spiritual as well.
Yeah, and even things like broken bones and not having to take antibiotics after the dentist.
Yeah, yeah.
There's, I'm not saying that I can do everything because that would not be very wise of me, but I will refer you to somebody who can,
Right.
and that's important. And
You're right about the broken bones. I remember when I my OBGYN, I had gone in and I had broken a bone, and she gave me a remedy to actually speed up the healing. Started with an S.
oh, Symphytum.
Symphytum. There you go.
Yeah, and yeah, that's amazing. It just and hypericum for nerve damage. And I mean, there's just so many wonderful things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well,
thank you
Nancy,
so much.
is there anything that we haven't covered that I want to make sure that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, we didn't cover cell salts.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, we have some time.
So cell salts, um, this is actually kind of, I think it's funny and a little morbid, but it's true nonetheless. So, and people will find out where they're from. But there's another doctor around the same time in the late 1800s. Um, our cells in our body get turned off from things we do, from things we eat, from life experiences. And so cell salts, they don't replace the minerals in your body, but they turn your cells back on. And how they were discovered is by this guy called Dr. Schussler. He decided to analyze bodies after they were dead. So, and he wanted to see what minerals were left in the body at the time of death, because he said if they're in the body at the time of death, they must be pretty important. So, so that's how they got discovered. And they are related to homeopathy. They aren't made the same way, but they are made homeopathically, but they're not taken as far as remedies. And so I do an evaluation for that, and you can see on people's faces what cell salts they need.
Really?
Yeah, it's
So
really
what would be an example?
like people have puppy bags under their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't um they could need nat self, and like kids, when kids after your kids, some kids they do run around, they play soccer and they're fine, but you see the kids that are red,
Mm-hmm.
they need Magphos and Ferrophos, and you can put it in their water bottle
Mm-hmm.
and they'll recover so much faster.
Oh, I could have used it. I always turn purple when I play tennis, my face would turn bright red
Wow.
from running. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I can do an evaluation. That's a good place to start if you want to, if you're thinking, homeopathy sounds a little iffy, but um, you know, and I'm also offering Reiki. I don't even think you know that, but
Oh.
I've been a Reiki master for years, and I decided at somebody else's strong insistence that I should do Reiki as well. And
Yeah, and so for people that know that you can do Reiki in a distance. As a
yes.
matter of fact, it was really funny. I hadn't used my Reiki in years. And I'm actually about to get a training, and I had to have my Reiki 2, and I couldn't remember the symbol, so I actually took Reiki 2 again. So I could use my long distance symbols.
Yes, I took Reiki too, and I'm also, you might want to do this too. There's an Egyptian Reiki called Sekim.
Ah,
So I'm going to take that.
I've never heard of that.
Yes. Yeah, the Reiki person I work with, she does Karuna Reiki, Sekim, Lightarian Reiki. I mean, there's so many. And
They are. It's so fascinating. I remember I got my Reiki master at Stonehenge. I was attuned in the stones.
oh,
That was
nice.
a really funny story of how that happened. But yeah, there's so many beautiful ways of helping people heal. And Nancy, thank you so much for all this information
Thank
and
you.
letting us know about cell salts too. I actually have that mirror upstairs.
That balances water in your body.
So if someone's dehydrated, is that what that's for?
Not necessarily, because but if you have are you sure you have a cell salt mirror or just the remedy? Because
It's in a plastic bottle. It's not in the little
Okay, they're not, they dissolve, well, they all dissolve on
It's a
yeah,
bigger tablet. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I have a couple of different ones. I haven't used them in years, and they don't expire either, do they?
No, and I know why.
Why?
Because the date on all medication um, is not really real. There actually is no test on the planet that can tell you if your medication or your homeopathic remedy or cell salt will expire. The whole reason is that it's a marketing tool.
Try
When
to
they
get you to
produce
buy
a
more.
hundred, if they produce 100,000 tablets or 100,000 bottles of something, they put on the date they expect to sell out by.
Wow.
Yeah, because I took this course. Apparently, homeopathic remedies are part of the medical pharmacopoeia, and they're
Hmm.
all registered, how they're made, and all of that. And that is what the guy said. And I said, I mean, it makes sense. They want to have some control, inventory control, but they have no test how to test any of it. And
No, no. And you can buy kits. I have these boron kits that are 30C and 60C, and then I have my Dr. Schucknick's. I mean, I don't think I will ever use all of these. They'll be passed down to my grandchildren one day.
you could see what I have now.
I bet.
It's like crazy. And then I inherited a friend of mine passed away and she'd been studying homeopathy and her husband offered me all of her remedies.
Wow. Wow.
So, and it's like, yeah, but it's just so fascinating.
It is fascinating. So Nancy, again, thank you so much for this amazing information. We're going to have all your contact information in the description below. And I really appreciate seeing you. And oh my dog anyway, we will talk again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much.